What's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you on this Thursday here on another NorbCam News Hour. Now, today I'm very excited because we've got a special guest that you're going to meet in just a moment. You may have heard him if you're from the local area on 710 ESPN Seattle. I can't wait to get him on here. That's all you can see on here as I've been hyping it up. Paul Gallant from 710 ESPN is going to join me here to talk a little Seahawks and a little broadcasting and all that kind of stuff. So in just a moment, I'm going to pop it on here. But first, I just want to quickly just remind everybody, I'd love it if you guys would smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and that notification bell, and that way you won't miss a single video in the future like this one. And a special shout out to all the NORBFAM members like the MVPs, Nick LeBeau, Anthony D, Jesse Sobh, Ryker, Rockstar, NINJA-CRK, and the All-Pros, Maria Maraj, Jason E, Casey Sportsnerd, Aidan Pham, BJ, Michael Page, and Albert Delgado. I appreciate you guys, always your support. So without further ado, because we have a lot to talk about, let's get right into it. Here we go. Here's the man, Paul Gallant from 710 ESPN. Man, I appreciate you making the time to be here, man. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to join, and you know what? I'm really excited to talk some more about what has been a pretty chaotic last couple of days, and yeah, I guess last couple of months. We want to talk about all that Russell Wilson drama.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about it. It's a necessary thing, man. But I enjoy your show, man. You have some very interesting takes. You're always very spirited, especially that early in the morning. So I love the energy that you bring here. But before we start, man, I got to credit I think the reason this is happening, I got to give it to one of my biggest fans out here and who I've collaborated many times with, Seahawks Martin, who's involved in my Discord and has been a fan of mine for a long time. Seahawks Martin is really the one who planted the seed because he said, hey, you know what? I think Paul Gallant might do a show with you. I was like, really? Paul from 710? That's correct, right? Somehow Seahawks Martin connected with you?
Seahawks Martin connected with me, and then Lori Cross also said, hey, you got to get on NorbCam. And I was like, okay, you know what? You guys, you got me to do it. I will do what you guys tell me to do. I am that desperate for attention and for clout.
Well, so Martin, thank you. Seahawks Martin, thank you. And Lori, thank you too. Both of you guys are awesome fans, and we've got many collaborations coming up. So thank you for making this thing happen. So, Paul, I want to start here because, we're going to get into the football stuff. I want to start before because there's a lot of people who probably don't know you, because I got a lot of people who watch this from not just from Seattle, but around the country, and frankly, some people from around the world who are Seahawks fans. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are. I've already identified you. Your information is right there. We got your, for the Seattle local 710 ESPN affiliate. You can check out all his information in the description, as well as what you see on the screen on Twitter, Instagram. Check out his Facebook. But give me kind of the lowdown. How did you end up here in the Seattle market? You're wearing your Seahawks old school jersey. Are you a Seahawks fan? What's your background in terms of sports history and how you got to Seattle, man?
Now, some of you guys are going to be really mad at me, so I have to make an admission. Things have changed in my life over the last, 25 years or so. I grew up in the Boston area. You know who I rooted for. I don't even need to say it when I was growing up. However, my background covering football started with the Houston Texans, and that started way back in 2011. I covered that team for a while, and when you cover a team that is that bad, you start to learn that you need to leave. And while things did not exactly work out for me in Houston, somehow I found myself fortunate enough to work at 710 ESPN Seattle. The Seahawks are always a team that I have appreciated from afar, starting with the game that Russell Wilson led that unbelievable comeback in the fourth quarter against the team I grew up rooting for. I remember in that moment right there, man, this Russell Wilson guy, he is something else. I didn't think he would turn into the quarterback that he has turned into. But, man, when you cover the Houston Texans, you are going to leave as quickly as you possibly can, especially if you have the great fortune of covering a team like this. It's been a blast. I can't believe it's already been a year and a half. And I hope it is many, many more years here in the beautiful city of Seattle, especially as we get closer and closer to a summer, which I hopefully will have to enjoy without a pandemic involved.
Yeah, I know you kind of been robbed this past year of this is not, the type of Seattle experience you're supposed to have. So this hopefully will be better with, audiences and fans getting back in the stands, with the Mariners starting off first. And hopefully by the time we get to the football season, we can actually have real fans and what we missed out on all of last year, which would have made a huge difference, in terms of the season.
You ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. I mean, the first game I ever went to at then CenturyLink was that Thursday night football game against the Rams in 19. The place was so loud. And I mean, the Texans play indoors. That place is pretty loud too. And I just was blown away by the entire experience. And yeah, man, it was awkward going to the press box and sitting up there. And I'm one of those people that's in the media that I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve. So whether I was excited, like standing up and raising my hand, you're not supposed to do that, or just being really frustrated when things weren't going so well, especially in that playoff game. It's also weird when you see there's nobody else around it. It just doesn't feel like you're actually watching a real sport. But you know what? At least they got in a season this past year, and there were some bright moments, and hopefully they'll be able to build off of them this past year.
How hard is that to do? I know you have to maintain quiet neutrality when you're in the press box. So when something happens or something terrible, you just have to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's got to be
it's
so
hard. It's something that you learn over time to get better and better at. But honestly, there is a certain point where if you love football enough and you see DK Metcalf blasting by the entire defense wide open down the field, and every single time when that happened, Stacey Ross used to make fun of me because I would just say, "Got him," and she would say, "Spoiler alert, Paul." But I have a hard time watching the game in the press box. It's a little bit of a soulless environment, but you know what? We are supposed to cover the team neutral and objective as much as we possibly can. And even though a lot of people, because I tend to be critical and a bit of a snobby football fan and sometimes, nitpick at the Seahawks and the things that they aren't able to do, I really do enjoy watching this team. And I'm hoping that they're going to be able to build off some of the few positives that took place last year, and that the way that things ended is not going to carry over into a season where there's still an opportunity left for them. As long as they got Russell Wilson under center, they're always going to have a chance.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Mr. Russell Wilson in just a second. But we got some breaking news thanks to the chat here. Drive Squiz and a bunch of other people saying that the Seahawks have re-signed Ethan Pocic for 1 year, $3 million, apparently. So that must have just come down, because I hadn't seen that before we started our broadcast. It must have just came down. So Ethan Pocic, love him or hate him, sounds like he may be the guy that still remains under center for next year. So, he wasn't bad for most of the year. It was just that last game, unfortunately, he did not have his best game in that playoff game that you spoke of, nor did Jacob Hollister. They picked a bad game to have one of their worst games, unfortunately.
It's really hard to block Aaron Donald, and I do think that we have to give Aaron Donald some credit for being Aaron Donald. I know he only played half of that game, but Ethan Pocic or whoever you throw out there, even, this coming season, if it's Gabe Jackson, they're going to have their work cut out for them going up against a guy like that. Ethan Pocic finally got, I think, a taste of NFL action this year. They kept him at one position. There's no Tom Cable messing him up. I'm not going to act like I'm believing that Ethan Pocic is going to turn into a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro at some point. But you have limited resources this offseason, and you're not going to be able to sign a bunch of new offensive linemen the way that you saw Kansas City go after Joe Thuney and some of these other teams approach things. There are some guys you're going to have to bring back, and you're going to have to hope that you can actually develop them further than where they were last year. So I understand the frustration with Pocic. It's warranted in some places, but I felt like he and Brandon Shell were actually surprises last year on a Seahawks offensive line that was not as bad as I thought it would be going into the year.
Yeah. So let's jump in to the Seahawks Russell Wilson thing. This has been crazy, and I think I'm with you in terms of there was a lot more media fueling this fire than there was maybe the reality of the situation, or at least from the standpoint of would the Seahawks actually trade Russell right now. There was really no situation that made any sense for them to do that. But it does still break. It's the situation, while it seems like it's resolving itself. Well, I guess I should first ask you, are we done with the Russell Wilson drama for now? Can we kind of say that, okay, we know he's going to be our quarterback in 2021? Can we just say that already?
I think so. And here's the thing you got to think about. Look, whatever frustrations Russell Wilson had, what could he do to force his way out of town? There's only one thing, and it would be something that would have taken place in August or in September. He would have to not play. And that's just something that I feel like is not in Russell Wilson's character. It's a very noble quality, by the way. It's not like James Harden, a guy I covered in Houston, who basically mailed it in so that he could get out of town. That's the only way that Russell Wilson could have forced a trade. Otherwise, and you're seeing a lot of takes right now from guys like Mike Florio and Colin Cowherd, and no disrespect to those guys, but they're hearing a lot of things from Russell Wilson's agent, Mark Rogers, who goes about things in a way that I don't really appreciate. But you know what? He's fighting for his client. I get the game is the game. At the same time, some of the way that they went about things this offseason, I thought were tiresome. Russ has asked for a lot over the past calendar year. Remember at the end of the 2019-2020 season, he said he wanted superstars and he wanted more input in the offense. And the offseason continues, and he said he wanted Antonio Brown. And then the offseason continues, and then this past season takes place. And after the year, the offensive line took steps forward. And I thought it was distasteful after the season for him to comment on an offensive line that had improved. I get it. The offensive line wasn't great. Russell Wilson's a part of that. The offensive scheme is a part of that. The offensive line is a part of that. It felt like he was pinning the blame entirely on the offensive line. And I know there were some comments that he had made where he said, yeah, I'm a part of some of those sacks that I take, but I thought he was a little bit dismissive of it because on that Dan Patrick show, when he did the interview, he essentially said, you know what, though, when I extend those plays and I don't get sacked, it turns into touchdowns. Right. Which it does, honestly, for sometimes, but not every time. Right. So I think with that in mind, that is something that the Seahawks, I think, already knew without Russell Wilson even having to bring it to their attention that they had to address this offseason. Regardless of whether or not Russell spoke, I think that they would have tried to make a trade for a guy like Gabe Jackson. Maybe they would have gone with Rodney Hudson. Right now, though, I think that we have weathered the storm, at least as far as it affects the Seahawks this year. Next year, I suppose we could be right back in this conversation. But honestly, unless there is a team that's offering an ability for the Seahawks to get the next quarterback, whether it would have been the Jets, who I doubt Russell Wilson would have wanted to go to with the number 2 pick, or the Miami Dolphins with the Texans number 3 pick, or Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars with the number 1 pick. Like, unless it was one of those 3 teams, or it's the Texans and Deshaun Watson, there's no trade right now that could be made that's going to make Seattle be relevant still, If you lose Russell Wilson, you're going to fall back into the same conversation as the desperate Chicago Bears, who the media is really trying to pump the tires into that weak offer, which is 3 first-round picks, which are likely going to be in the back of the first round. I would imagine they probably put in Khalil Mack, and they might have put in another pass rusher or something like that, or a defensive player. I think Akeem Hicks might have been involved in a 3rd-round pick. Great, cool. Doesn't help me get a quarterback, and now I'm the Bears and you're the Seahawks. I don't want that.
Yeah. So, again, I think the fire has been sort of extinguished for the time being. I think so too. And that Dan Patrick interview, we talked about a lot about that. And what he said was pretty non-inflammatory because, like you said, the moment he asked, you got sacked a lot, Russell, and he kept pushing. He would not let Russell just it's all for the team. He would not let it go. And when he did finally address the pressure, he just kind of forced him to say something, and he really made it like, yeah, we could get better there. But it wasn't like he threw everybody under the bus, not like Patrick Mahomes after the Super Bowl. I mean, talk about throwing your offensive line under the bus. He really threw those guys under the bus, didn't he?
And we've seen other guys do the same thing with Peyton Manning. I think it's a little different when it's in the heat of the moment with Peyton Manning and with Patrick Mahomes. Because, if you're at a press conference after you've lost a game, you're going to be a little more heated. Now, with Russ, I think Russ is so delicate and careful with what he wants to ask for. And I think he tried his best to not say, hey, look, these guys aren't good. But it doesn't matter the way that he said it. You just have to think about how the offensive linemen must have felt when they first heard it. And maybe Russ has smoothed things over again. A lot of these things happen behind closed doors. And especially these days, we're getting less and less access to actually knowing what these guys are saying to one another. But I felt like he could have handled it a little bit better. I mean, I think that to pin the blame on the protection and sort of dismiss his role in it, I think it was an everyone problem. I think it was on Pete Carroll. I think it was on the offensive line. I think it was on offense that with Brian Schottenheimer just hit an absolute wall.
Yeah, that scheme. The scheme. There were times when there was nobody for him to throw to. So every receiver had his back turned while Russell was waiting for them to finally make a break. I mean, it was a lot of things. But yeah, you're right. It could have been better handled. And what could have been better handled, this is the one part when I have been trying to calm other people down who are saying, no, Russell Wilson's gone. He's going to Chicago. No, he's going to Las Vegas now. I mean, it's like, okay, let's just calm it down. But one thing I could never really explain to people is why would the agent go and name those 4 teams? Obviously, it looks like it's not going to happen, especially with the Chicago thing now kind of going away. But why? What did the agent Mark Rodgers really have to accomplish by throwing those 4 names out there? What did that accomplish other than right now making the fan base a little more pissed off at Russell and his agent for doing that? I still haven't figured that one out.
I think he overestimated perhaps the way that people would look at Russell Wilson after the fact. Because I do think there are a lot of people that probably wrongly so, by the way, think that the Seahawks would be fine without Russ. There have been some people that have been texting into my shows like, oh, you got to trade Russ. No, you're crazy. Stop. Stop. I'm going to squirt bottle out.
Those are the people who think the grass is always greener on the other side and don't remember what it was like before Russell Wilson came. They get so hell-bent on, the next guy is the better one. It's like, you guys don't remember how long it took to get a Russell Wilson in this place. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
As someone covering Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer and Brock Osweiler under center, believe me, I know. So whatever issues you have with Russ, you should have probably directed them at Mark Rodgers. And look, Mark Rodgers is his only client. He doesn't care about burning bridges with other teams or anything like that. And look, he would have burned bridges with the Cowboys. The Dak Prescott's agent not too thrilled about Mark Rodgers saying, yeah, let's trade my client to a team that already has a quarterback that's good, though not on Russell Wilson's level. He put that list out there, I think, trying to create urgency. And maybe he feels like his mission has been accomplished, seeing as the Seahawks went after a couple of offensive linemen. I think this is done for now. Ultimately, I don't even know if this is more about Russell Wilson versus the Seahawks as much as it might be Mark Rodgers versus members of the Seahawks front office and brass. Like, I don't know that it's necessarily a big divide between Russell Wilson, the quarterback, and the team. I think that Russ has some frustrations, but I also think that Russ, you mentioned the grass is always greener on the other side. I imagine that Russ can take a look at this team and realize that this organization has been as consistent as it gets in the NFL over the past decade. I mean, really, New England's the only other alternative, and they were just 7-9 last year.
Yeah. So to kind of just wrap this chapter up about the Russell Wilson thing, I got to ask you, in the same way that Dan Patrick pushed Russell Wilson for an answer, how long do you think Russell Wilson will stay in Seattle? I've always wanted him to be here as a career Seahawk guy, play his whole year till he's 50 years old and retire a Seahawk and all that. What do you think? I mean, with all that's happened, do you think this is a expiration date coming up here by the time his next contract's up? Or do you think they could still salvage this? He can be here. What's your gut telling you about Russell Wilson in terms of the future with Seattle?
It's hard to read these things because it does feel like these days that star players in the NFL are starting to carry the same kind of clout, kind of weight, power that you're seeing in basketball. But Russ is under contract for the next 3 seasons. And when he is a free agent after the 2023 season, going into age 36, assuming that all of a sudden his play has not dropped off of a cliff, I am going to franchise tag him. I am not going to let him hit the open market. And the year after that, if he doesn't sign an extension with me, I'm going to sign him to the franchise tag again. And if he, the process repeats itself for a 3rd straight year, I'm keeping Russell Wilson as long as I possibly can. And I feel like the Seahawks should operate things that way. But maybe it does get to a point where both sides are sick of one another. I mean, I never thought that we would see Tom Brady and the New England Patriots walk away from one another, but they did this past offseason. And I think Russ maybe looks at the Brady situation and might have a bit of a naive sense of what would happen if he went to another spot. I think he's got to remember that the Buccaneers, basically because of their own incompetence, were able to stockpile a lot of guys that were early draft picks. Mike Evans. Also, we're talking about Devin White at middle linebacker, who I think is arguably the best middle linebacker in the NFL. And he goes to this Bucs team that I think on paper you look at because of Jameis Winston and 30 interceptions in 2019, and you're like, oh, this isn't that good of a team. But I know the Bucs have always been trendy when it comes to NFL writers over the last couple of seasons because of the talent that they have. Is Russ going to be able to find that spot when he leaves? There's a chance, but I think that if you're the Seahawks, you just don't even give him the ability to follow through on that chance. If you franchise tag him, you're going to force him to not play. And for a guy who cares as much about his legacy as Russ clearly does, he brings it up a lot. I don't think he's going to be the guy that's willing to hold out and not play a season in his 30s, waste some time just to make a play to get on another team.
I don't think so either. Now, of course, like you said, it all depends on how the season goes. So far, we've been fortunate that every single year, with the exception, well, actually, we've never had a losing season under Russell Wilson, knock on wood. We've been in the playoffs every year except for one. So if you use that as a track record, you feel pretty optimistic that we're going to be competitive. And barring a just horrible season where it just falls apart for the next 2-3 years and it's just complete disaster, which is hard to imagine, then maybe we're all thinking, maybe this isn't working. Maybe we should get rid of this situation here. But for now, I'd like to think that history will repeat itself and we'll be in one of those competitive situations. And it's going to be tough, though, man. The NFC West is just, every team is just loading up.
Yeah,
and we should talk a little bit about the free agent side of things. a quick line acknowledge Chef Jack Attack, another one of the regulars here on the show, wants to know, are we doing calls? We'll see how we're doing on time. Paul's time is precious here.
As long as you want, man.
We'll see.
Seriously, we'll go as long as we want. As long as you want here. Seriously, I got nothing to do. I'm just going to watch the tournament with my cat. So
okay, all right.
All I got going for me.
Okay, all right. Just watch what you say, because watch what you ask for, because you might regret it. No. And then signed Xavier Rhodes says, according to Ian Rappaport, we re-signed Pocic. Okay, so we covered that. So Pocic is back. So let's talk a little bit of free agency. So the guys we started to lose guys first before we picked up anybody, and in usual Seahawks fashion, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, the Seahawks! What are they doing? They're doing nothing." But it's like, come on, guys! How many times do we have to keep seeing this movie and go, "Don't you guys remember last year and the year before that and the year before that?" We always do this. So, but the unfortunate side is we lose players like Shaquill Griffin, probably the biggest loss of there. We lost Carlos Hyde. We lost Philip Dorsett. All going to Jacksonville. The Seahawks of the East.
How weird is that?
I mean, they're getting everybody, right?
You got
our players, our two coaches,
right?
And Daryl Bevell.
It's crazy.
And so Shaquille, and I think, isn't his brother going there too? Shaquille Griffin as well.
Too. You're right.
They're
yes.
two from one. So there's another one there. Carlos Hyde, Philip Dorsett. Philip Dorsett, man, there's a deal that just never quite panned out. But David Moore going to the southeast to Carolina. So really, I guess the one that people have discussed, was Shaquille Griffin. Were you sad when you saw that happen, or did you kind of feel like, that kind of saw that one as a necessary evil, given that you'd like to keep him, but there's just no way we'd pay that kind of money?
Personally, as someone who played at a very low level of high school football in St. Petersburg, Florida, like Shaquille Griffin, like Shaquille Griffin, yes, there's a part of me that was bummed out by that. He's a great dude. I wish him the best in Jacksonville. He's going to be closer to home for him. So that's good for him. Almost $50 million a year, even if it is a 2-year deal. I like Griffin. I think he made some steps forward this year as a cornerback. I think the step that he told us going into the year that he wanted to get better at was actually taking the football away. And he had 3 interceptions this past season. In 2019, he wasn't able to get some of those takeaways. But Griffin is getting paid now like one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. And I don't think that we can say Griffin is quite there. So they're taking a clear step back right now. I think we have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, if there is one positional group that the Seahawks, I think, should trust themselves on and their ability to evaluate it and their ability to find diamonds in the rough, if you will, it's got to be a cornerback, right? Now, I know they have swung and missed before with guys like Kerry Williams, but whether it's Richard Sherman or it's Brandon Browner or Byron Maxwell or Justin Coleman, this past year, DJ Reed, even finding Shaquille Griffin, who was a 3rd-round pick, this is a team that I feel like has to bet on itself and its ability to evaluate specific positions. And Pete Carroll, with his defensive background and especially in the secondary over time, I think has to look at himself in the mirror and say, you know what? This is a loss. Teams lose players every single free agency period, but $15 million was a little bit too much. It is important to note that they did make a last push. It wasn't as if they just let him walk. I think at the very end, they probably thought to themselves, you know what? We got to at the very least see if we can try to bring him back. But Jacksonville just offered more. And, that's what happens because of the salary cap. It's the great equalizer, and certain NFL teams are able to spend a lot more money because they don't have a quarterback that's making as much money as Russ is. And that's not a criticism of Russ, by the way. I mean, look, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. $50 million cap hit, I'd be fine with that with Russ. And I think anyone should be fine with something like that when you have a guy like that is that good. But you have to let some guys walk. Griffin will probably get you a compensatory pick down the road, I would think, depending on the way that the rest of free agency pans out and with how the Seahawks are generally fairly cautious this time of year. I don't think that's going to mess up their compensatory pick formula, but they do take a step back in the short term. And I imagine, Norb, that you feel the same way. It's a bummer. I mean, he is a good corner, and now you have to find out who the next guy is.
Well, he was the best corner we had, of the corners we had, and that kind of speaks to what we have around us. Although DJ Reed impressed us last year, and maybe he's got in a position to step up. He was a nice pickup, but he came for the Niners in sort of an unexpected. Who's this guy? Oh wow, who is this guy? This guy's pretty good.
That's what I thought too.
But now we got another guy from the 49ers. Right after we lost Shaquille, we pick up Witherspoon, and frankly, I don't really know much about this guy. He was one of those times we go, okay, I kind of remember that guy, but he wasn't like the guy on the Niners. So what do you know about, I can remember his first name,
Ahkello
Witherspoon. Hopefully that'll be a name where I'll know it because he's going to be so good. We're like, oh, Ahkello Witherspoon, of course, that guy.
Same.
What do you know about Ahkello Witherspoon? Is this a guy to excited about? Because we got him for basically $10 million less than it would have cost to keep Shaquill Griffin. Is he a guy that could step in? Is he a starting cornerback right off the bat, at least at this point, given what we got right now?
He has been a starting cornerback before. And if you want to get a taste for what he can be, then go back and watch the first 2 games of 2019, a year where the 49ers made it to the NFC Championship game. I think it's week 2, and he was going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he lined up against Mike Evans. And, you know, we've seen in that very same season, we saw Trey Flowers get his lunch money taken by Mike Evans. He's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, maybe a little inconsistent, but the guy's a beast. And I watched him in college at Texas A&M. I think he should have won the Heisman instead of Johnny Manziel. I have a lot of respect for Mike Evans. Witherspoon held his own in that game. Unfortunately, I think it was the next week he suffered a foot injury. He missed about 6 weeks or so. He comes back, and then all of a sudden he's just not the same player. His confidence is not the same. And he eventually got benched. He got benched twice. He got benched again in the playoffs against the Minnesota Vikings. I think he gave up a 41-yard touchdown pass or something to Stephon Diggs, and they just pulled him. They still made the Super Bowl without him. And the 49ers clearly feel pretty good about their defensive back depth. They did let DJ Reed walk because he was injured. They thought they would be able to stash him on the roster. But this is a guy who is 6'3". He's tall. He didn't quite run a 4.38 40 in the same draft as Shaquill Griffin, but he was a 3rd-round pick. He ran a 4.45. He had, I think, the 6th highest vertical total in that NFL combine. This is a guy that has, I think, a lot of the skill sets that you look for if you're the Seahawks and you're looking for guys at cornerback. And, you know, it was interesting to see where they went with DJ Reed this year because DJ Reed just does not fit the mold of an outside corner for them. They like the tall guys, and DJ Reed's a little smaller. They have Ugo Amadi too, who I think has some potential, but it's weird. I'm not sure how the nickelback position plays out. Marquise Blair, is he going to be healthy enough to get back into the mix? Witherspoon, I would not expect too much out of, but I think that Witherspoon has the kind of potential that should make you more excited about him than a Trey Flowers. And for $4 million, these are the kind of moves that you try to make and you see if it works out. You did the same thing this past offseason with Quinton Dunbar. By the way, Dunbar was ranked, I think, on Pro Football Focus for what it's worth. I don't put a lot of stock into Pro Football Focus, but the guys do put in a lot of effort to that website. He was ranked 2nd among corners in the NFL, only behind Richard Sherman in 2019. Dunbar was. For what it's worth, Witherspoon, who I think only played like 344 snaps this past season or something like that, was ranked 6th on Pro Football Focus. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I want to put too much stock into it, given what Dunbar really wasn't able to deliver this year. He didn't play that much because of injury. But I think there is reason for optimism about Witherspoon, but I would not say right now that the Seahawks should be settled at cornerback with just Ahkello Witherspoon to fill the void for Shaquill Griffin. There needs to be some more competition.
So we still might be looking for more corner help.
I see some comments are calling for Kyle Fuller and other names. He's available.
I know. There's always names that we get excited about. Drive Swizz in the Super Chat also says, Norb and Paul, do you guys think we're going to keep Jamal this season? Are you kidding? Right? How do you not keep him after what we gave up and being one of the best guys on your team? And granted, don't look at him for his secondary coverage. That's not what we brought him in for, right? I mean, you can't not keep him. If you're keeping Russell Wilson, well, you're keeping Jamal Adams, right? I think I believe that's your stance on this too. Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so for those people who keep saying, "Oh, let's get more draft picks and all this kind of stuff," Jamal Adams is going to stay. They're going to keep him for a while, right? Tell me your take on that. So the
draft pick guy, by the way, if people want the draft picks back, you guys got to stop, okay? If I could, wait, this is going to look like I'm grabbing you. I'm grabbing you by the shirt and I'm shaking you. Don't think about draft picks. Think about the real assets that you can have right now. Think about the guys like Gabe Jackson that you just traded a 5th-round pick to get. Jamal Adams, you paid a lot for him, draft pick wise. Not just 2 firsts, a 3rd-round pick too. It was a lot. These are the kind of moves that you make to get impact players on defense that can be the centerpiece of a defense in a possible post-Bobby Wagner world. You will extend him. Unfortunately, you're in a spot where he's got all the leverage, but while he might not be, Norb, as you mentioned, the best cover guy, he is one of the most disruptive front seven players in the NFL. Weird to think of him as a front seven player since he has a safety. But, I mean, if he's healthy in that game against the Rams, I do think it might have been different. There were a couple of spots. There's a play, I think it was on the left sideline early on where Jamal Adams looked like he had jumped the route, but he had a torn labrum in his shoulder. He couldn't reach up for the football. There's that jump ball to Cooper Kupp, which he caught somehow. There was a missed tackle that he had. Like he played very poorly in that Rams game. But again, he played with a torn labrum. Imagine playing with a busted shoulder when your physicality is your biggest forte. I give him a lot of credit for playing through it. He is going to be your best defensive player for probably the next 3 to 4 years. And I felt like when he was healthy, with the things that he brought to a pass rush that has largely been non-existent the last 2 seasons until the second half of this past year, you got to have him back. Trading him for draft picks, you're essentially punting on the season because you're getting rid of the one player defensively that I felt consistently was a difference maker for you.
Yeah, totally agree on that one. So let's just not even talk about the Jamal Adams thing. He is here. Yeah. He's going to stay for a while. But let's talk about the guys who, let's talk about, we talk about Witherspoon, but there are guys to get more excited about. We brought back Poona Ford. Great move, I thought, on the Seahawks part, right? We like Poona Ford. I don't think anybody doesn't like that move, right, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, come on. You need guys that you've had on the team before. Poona Ford is somebody he's really good against the run. And right now, the Seahawks defensive line, it's not elite, but you have some Swiss Army knife pieces that you feel pretty good about. LJ Collier and Poona Ford against the run. As far as the pass rush goes, you're hoping Alton Robinson can continue to build off of it. I thought Jaron Reed had a nice bounce back here. I criticized him a lot this offseason. I think he blocked me on Twitter because of that. He played well this past season. So he took strides in the right direction. Sometimes you're wrong about things, and I'm happy he proved me wrong. I like these guys to tell me to make me shut up. Seriously, as much as you think it's all my ego and all that stuff. No.
Well, and I think that ties into Jason E's super chat comment and to a player he mentions. So do we restructure anyone and bring Dunlap back? And Jaron Reed, once Carlos Dunlap came to Seattle, all of a sudden he was energized and things were happening. So let's transition from the guys we got to the guys who are out there. Carlos Dunlap, what do you think? I mean, we have 3 guys who are kind of the names that Seattle are like, can we get them back? Chris Carson, KJ Wright, Carlos Dunlap. What order do we need to prioritize? Because we can't get all 3. So those 3, which ones do you think we should get, and which ones do you think we could afford to bring back? Or if any of those guys.
That is tricky.
That's why I have you here, because it's a tricky question, and you're the guy to answer this question, right? So.
Wow, no, you gotta put me on the spot. No, I appreciate that. So here's a controversial take. I thought KJ Wright was significantly better than Bobby Wagner this past season in what he was asked to do versus what Bobby was asked to do. This is not a criticism of Bobby, which a lot of people tend to interpret it as, but I was a little hard on Bobby this past season. The first team All-Pro, I'm not 100% sure he was first team All-Pro. I think Devin White played better than him. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Whatever, though. KJ Wright had his best season last year. Who would have thought? KJ Wright was awesome. KJ Wright deserves a raise. He deserves money this offseason. He's not getting a whole lot of offers right now, which I was surprised by. I thought maybe Dallas or maybe Las Vegas, who have Dan Campbell and Gus Bradley as defensive coordinators respectively. I thought there might be some interest from them, and it hasn't happened. But Dunlap's at the top. Dunlap is number 1, and it's tricky too. And I've been moving around on this because I do think with the way that Pete Carroll and the Seahawks operate, you do need to have a plus at running back as your starting guy. You don't want to fall back into the void of 2016, 2017 when it's Russell Wilson leading your team in rushing touchdowns in 17, and you got a bunch of guys that are you're rolling the dice on and hoping that they work out. Yeah, you had that nice little run from Thomas Rawls in 16 and all, but you need to have a plus running back. But I think that the big problem for 2 of these guys is availability. For Carson, he's played in like 83% of the games over the time that he has been essentially the Seahawks bell cow running back. And I think right now, even though the running back market is drying up a little bit, that he's probably number 3 of those 3 guys that you listed. KJ Wright, because you have Jordan Brooks, a first-round pick who you're going to expect to get more snaps this year, and I thought he had a really good rookie season. I feel like KJ Wright is perhaps number 2. And number 1's got to be Dunlap. And what's weird with Dunlap is, I mean, it made sense for them to cut him, and hopefully they'll be able to bring him back because he only played 58% of the snaps this past season. So 58%, you know, that's too much for $14 million a year, no matter how good Dunlap was. But things are going well, at least for now, when it comes to a possible Dunlap or Wright return. Carson seems to be the only guy that's getting a little bit of interest. But I wonder if he's going to get the kind of life-changing money that he was hoping to get. Running backs are kind of screwed when they come into the league, especially a guy who's a 7th-round pick, and I feel for him. I really do believe that had Chris Carson not torn his ACL in high school, which he did in Georgia, he was a commit to Georgia. He, at Georgia, I feel like is a second or a first-round pick. Yeah. Right. Instead, he goes to Oklahoma State. It's a different offense. He doesn't run as much as probably he would have liked to. They were very pass heavy under Mike Gundy when he was there. And he ends up falling to the Seahawks in the 7th round. For what it's worth, like Pete Carroll wanted to take, I think, Chris Carson starting around round 3. And John Schneider, I think, has even joked about it. Like, and Pete's joked about it too. Pete's been like, yeah, I wanted Chris Carson right away. You know, he loves running backs. So, but yeah, in order, long tangent, done. 1, Dunlap. 2, Wright. 3, Carson.
And how out of 3, how many can we realistically get?
That's tricky. Now, here's a question I have for you, Norb.
Uh-oh.
Do you know how the salary cap works? Because I don't think I do anymore. I think the Rams are guilty of tax fraud. Like I don't know
how do those guys keep signing guys when it seems like they have spent so much money on everybody, and yet they keep. I don't get it. Yeah, and then they. I think I understand it, and then they say we restructured and we converted this money into bonus money. I really don't understand that part. I know the part where they say, "Oh, Seahawks only have X amount of dollars in the cap," but then they do some tricky things, and they even talked about restructuring Russell Wilson's contract, right, to where they don't even need his permission to do so.
Apparently not.
So I don't know what that means. I
don't either.
I think no matter what, Russell Wilson's still getting a lot of money. Maybe he just gets a little bit more later and a little bit less now, but in the end, he still gets the same amount of money. So no matter what, he's going to be fine. But yeah, I don't understand the cap thing. I wish I did because probably have a paid position somewhere, analyzing all that stuff. But somebody does. But yeah, that's the hard part, right? I guess I'm putting you on the spot on something where you can list the guys who are most important, but can they work out the numbers? So many moving parts to it, right?
Have you seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia? There's an episode. Charlie Day is trying to figure out like who Pepe Sylvia is. He's working in the mailroom. He's losing his mind.
I have not seen that. So no. Okay, I have to go check that. It's on my list now to check it out. Now that you mention it.
Oh, there's a meme or a GIF or whatever of Charlie Day, and he's got this big whiteboard behind him, and there's all this stuff all over the place. That's a salary cap for me right now. I mean, listening to people try to explain it, I don't get it. Watching teams just basically show blatant disregard for the salary cap. How much of a joke, how much of a farce is that Taysom Hill contract, which is 4 years, $140 million, but it's not really 4 years, $140 million. I have seen terms I have never seen used to describe some contract years where guys are under contract for a certain amount of time, but those contract years actually don't exist. Teams are finding ways to manipulate the cap, I think, in ways that they haven't before. And I would imagine that the league might be looking the other way on some of these things, just given some of the limits of the pandemic. So to answer your question, I don't know how hamstrung they actually are by the salary cap right now. I think that John Schneider has put the Seahawks in a position where they're not like the New Orleans Saints, who are supposedly $100 million over the cap going into free agency. We saw and heard some similar things about the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you take a look at the docket on ESPN or on Twitter or on whatever website you go to. These teams that supposedly were in horrible cap shape have not suffered the bloodbaths that you thought they would. And I thought the Rams were going to suffer the biggest one.
Right.
Yet here they are. So that's actually good for the Seahawks, I think. I don't know specifically how, but stands to reason that if the Rams, who were all this money seemingly over the cap, and the Eagles and all these other teams have not been, I guess, as bloodthirsty as we expected, that's got to be good, at least for the Seahawks potentially being able to bring back a couple of those guys. Hopefully they would be able to bring back all of them, but definitely easier said than done.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Chris Carson is one of my favorite runners, man. I love the way that guy runs. I know he's had his injury issues, but when he's in there, he's a difference. And some people go we'll just get another running back. Running backs grows on trees. It's like, well, we've seen a lot of just guys put in there, and it hasn't always been pretty, man. So,
right, Norb.
But it is still a business, and who knows? I don't know if Chris Carson's refollowed the Seahawks on Twitter or Russell Wilson's. He kind of cut them off, and so maybe he might have said goodbye and decided no matter how much they offer, he won't come back. But we'll see. Money talks, though. But Cameron Hughes in the chat says restructuring. He's a smart kid. And he does trivia, and he sets up trivias for me, so he's a really smart guy. But he says restructuring is transferring base salary and bonus, and that bonus is spread over the rest of the player's contract, clearing cap space for the current year. So, again, it's instead of pay now, pay later, just on paper. But like I said, someone's going to work that magic and figure out how that all goes along. So, quick acknowledgement here. Daniel Kirk, let's remind everybody that David Moore is gone. Thank you. We do know that, and that brings up another thing. We are looking for a third wide receiver because all of a sudden we had a whole room full of them, and all of a sudden, Josh Gordon out, Philip Dorsett gone, David Moore gone. Who's that third guy now?
Right now it has to be by default Freddie Swain. Here's the thing, acquisitions, they make headlines, but development is what helps you win championships. And I think we saw glimpses from Freddie Swain this past year, but right now this is his big opportunity. When the Seahawks don't have a whole lot of draft picks, and they don't have a lot necessarily, at least based off of what we know, seemingly a whole lot of space to work with as far as being able to throw money at guys. And we've seen a bunch of the receivers that could be better number 3 wide receivers than David Moore already signed with other teams. He's right now your front runner. And I know for some people right now, you're probably hearing that and you're like, what? I don't know how I feel about that, but that is right now his opportunity as someone who randomly roots for the University of Florida. I always believe in a Florida athlete. They are the fastest generally in the world. But yeah, it's going to be hard pressed for them to get a lot of production out of that position. And I think maybe the direction that the Seahawks are going on their team is kind of clear. It's kind of right in front of us where we see Gerald Everett being brought aboard. I would imagine that means that you're going to have, a lot of 2 tight end sets out there, which, by the way, you've seen a lot of recently with the Seahawks. But, those 2 tight end sets for the Rams when it was Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett worked out pretty well.
Pretty good.
So, yeah, I imagine you're going to see a lot of big packages, at least for now. Still plenty of time in free agency. I imagine there's going to be some person that they bring in that we have never heard of that will end up being decent. Because here's the thing. When you got a quarterback like Russell Wilson, even if he might get frustrated with some of the receivers, maybe thinking that, they're not quite up to snuff, these quarterbacks, especially a guy who can extend plays the way that he can, is going to make a lot of these guys look a lot better.
So Drive Swizz, he's been busy in the chat today. He agrees. KJ, got to take care of him. That was number 2 on your list there. Jason E says, why not make him a third wide receiver instead of overpaying? Not sure who he's talking about here. But we were talking about the third wide receiver. I want to throw a name or two out here. So Alina Dahl, she's one of the moderators on my YouTube channel, does a great job of kicking out all the, the riffraff out of the chat. But she had inside information that Golden Tate is going to be coming to the Seahawks. Now, I don't know if you've heard anything about this. Have you heard anything at all, rumblings? And we know he got released by the Giants. Is there even a rumble out there in the NFL sports world of Golden Tate after what we know happened way back in 2013? Could he possibly be coming back? Is there any possibility? Because she swears by that this is going to happen. Trust me. I'm just curious if you heard anything about this, or is this going to come out of nowhere and suddenly breaking news? Golden Tate's coming back to Seattle.
My co-host and I, Danny, have talked about it. I don't know that there's actually a chance it happens. I know it just seems like it makes a whole lot of sense, but I think that there's still some lingering hard feelings that you are seeing from, Doug Baldwin in that camp. And I wonder if they'd be able to bridge that gap. If they can, great. And whatever happened. And I know there's a lot of rumors out there that a lot of you guys that are watching and listening right now have probably seen and are probably aware of. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're talking about as a number 3 wide receiver. He's probably not the same player that he used to be, but as far as just his side-to-side movements and all of the things that you might be looking for at this phase in his career for a guy out of a slot receiver, I think he would be a really great fit here. But unfortunately, I think right now it's just a rumor, and you just got to sit back and hope for it to happen. But I'm having a hard time seeing it happen, especially when you see some of the same usual suspects who have had such issues with Russ be as vocal about in their own way, passive aggressively. And I'm specifically talking about Doug Baldwin. I don't know if you saw Doug Baldwin on the podcast recently talking about how he burned Darrelle Revis in the Super Bowl and how Russ might have been a little scared to throw it his way. Like there's still some of that passive aggressive shade that's being thrown his way. And I feel like Golden Tate's still close with those guys. So I imagine that there might still be some underlying feelings there. I'd love to see it happen, though. I'd love to see, you know what? Sit him down at a table. Figure it out. This is football, guys.
I'd love to see it happen just so I can say that my moderator on my channel broke this news like a month ago, way before any of you guys did. So sources. But so one more name on the receiver side. This has been a mystery to me because I interviewed him before the season started, the year he was drafted. I thought he was the coolest guy, and he never saw the field, barely, a play or two. John Ursua. What has happened to him? Isn't he still on the practice squad? I mean,
I think they did bring him back into the mix.
Why did he never take that step up? Do you have any idea? Because he just sort of disappeared in no man's land. He came in that one play at the end of the 2019 season where he could have been the hero and scored if he could have got the ball across the end zone, and then we would have won that game. Who knows how the 2019 season would have gone had we scored that touchdown, won the NFC West, and the seeding would have all been totally different. But it didn't happen, and then we never saw him again. I don't think he even played in that playoff game that came afterwards against the Packers, and I thought, hey, here he is, John Ursua, my man, finally playing, and then gone again. Any idea what happened to that guy?
I don't know specifically why he ended up being sort of out of the mix, but I have a lot of appreciation for the random cult hero status that he had developed amongst Seahawks fans over the course of the last couple of years, because I didn't really know anything about him. And I would see on the internet, John Ursua shoots firebolts of lightning from his eyes and bolts of thunder from his behind. And I was thinking to myself, wait a second, that's William Wallace. That's John Ursua too. And there's an appreciation for Ursua. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I tend to sit back and with a lot of these guys, when I see it on the field, we'll all see it on the field together. I think he had a really great training camp in 2019. That was right before I got here. So I think some people that saw him in that camp would probably know a little bit better what happened between that camp and the end of the year. I have seen a couple of comments over there about Josh Reynolds. Reynolds is an intriguing name because if Shane Waldron brought in Gerald Everett, and I thought that was almost close to a lock this offseason, because Gerald Everett is a tight end that played for the Rams and Shane Waldron is an ex-Rams tight end coach. I think that Josh Reynolds is also a possibility, and that he is still available today in a wide receiver market that seems depressed. I mean, still, it took a really long time to see guys like Will Fuller go off the market. Kenny Golladay is taking his sweet time. There's, I think, a chance that you could have Reynolds for a lot less than market value on some sort of 1 year prove it deal. And honestly, given what we have seen from Reynolds against the Seahawks, I would not dislike that. I think that guy is a productive player and probably is as good, if not better, than David Moore. But they, of course, actually have to pull the trigger on the deal. And who knows how that affects their ability to bring back the guys that we listed a little bit earlier.
That would be a pretty cool, exciting signing if we can get that one done for sure. So, well, I know that you promised me 30 minutes. I'm almost to an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. But
I'm a loser. I have nothing to do. Let's talk Seahawks.
Yeah, all right. And you got a cat back there I saw wandering around on your sofa or something.
She's actually blending in right there with the couch. That is her. Wait, hang on. Where's my hand?
Is it black and white or just black?
It is brownish grayish. She is like gray. Basically, my apartment looks like a cave right now, which is also why I look even pastier than I am in real life. Because I kind of look like a ghost right now.
That's the lighting. I need to color correct.
Yeah. It's just the lighting. It's not my super pasty skin at all that burns.
No. It's not COVID or nothing.
All the time.
All right. So I do have a couple questions, and I might take a couple calls in the Discord if we have time.
Let's do it.
So my first question, I know it's early, and it's way too early to really be able to make this question answerable, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you think the Seahawks will do in 2021? Given what you know
right now, they're a playoff team. Are they the division champs? I don't know. Right now, I think top to bottom, if San Francisco is actually healthy all year long, I do think they're the best team in the division. The interesting thing is the Seahawks have the 49ers number. And there's this weird game of rock, paper, scissors in the division where the Rams, they have the Seahawks number and the 49ers have the Rams number. So these three teams, for whatever reason, just happen to specifically be bad matchups for other ones. Then you have the Cardinals sort of lingering in the background, like Fredo Corleone. I'm smart, and they bring in JJ Watt this offseason. I like JJ Watt. I covered him in Houston. I think he's a legitimately good dude. I don't know that he's still the same player. AJ Green, I don't know that he's still the same player either. The Cardinals are the cutesy team that has potential, but is Cliff Kingsbury going to be able to get more out of Kyler Murray than we've seen the last 2 years? For what it's worth, the Cardinals have played well against the Seahawks, but I think right now the Cardinals are in 4th place in the division. And now I think that the Rams, because of the way that they match up against the Seahawks, could potentially finish ahead of Seattle and also make the playoffs. But I feel like them trading for Matt Stafford is only going to lead to an incremental improvement. Stafford's a better quarterback than Jared Goff, but Matt Stafford's also one of those quarterbacks that everyone in NFL media wants you to know is really good. And generally, when you have to go out of your way to explain somebody is really, really good, he might be good, but he's probably not as good as you think he is. We had this conversation today on my radio show, with Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney's a guy I loved covering in Houston. Yep. Clowney's a guy I thought played well for the Seahawks last year. But how many times did you have to tell somebody that might have been watching the team on a regular basis that saw the stat numbers and said, oh, he only has 3 sacks. How good is he actually? He's kind of overrated. And then you have to over-explain, like, wait, but he's a great run disruptor, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Don't look at the stat. You got to watch the tape. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And you know what? Honestly, we tend to do that with Jamal Adams, but I like Adams, and I think he's a big part of this defense. So I think when it comes down to it, with that situation, I think right now, Matt Stafford makes the Rams slightly better, but as far as making them a Super Bowl contender, like some people are saying, I'm not going to go that far, at least right now. So look, the NFC West is going to be a dogfight. The Seahawks are a playoff team right now. I can't go so far as to say that they're gonna win the division, but you have Russell Wilson. You're going to be in the mix at the end. Are the Packers going to be the same team that they were last year? I don't know. They've been weirdly successful the last 2 seasons. And this past year, they were much better than they were, especially when they got blitzed by the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And the Bucs are bringing everybody back. The Bucs, I think, are right now the team to be concerned about. They finished the season so strong, just like old Tom Brady Patriot teams. They got better as the season went along. But look, they're a playoff team. Right now, I can't really say they're more than a playoff team. There are still holes that need to be fixed. And we need to see that Shane Waldron offensively is going to take this team to a different level because, the additions that they make this offseason, I'm sure that there will be some changes and perhaps improvements, but also some detractions that take place. But I think the most pressure this year is on Shane Waldron. And what is he going to do to change some of maybe the bad habits that on the latest episode of this little YouTube series I do, Getting to Know Seahawks Twitter, my co-worker, Stacey Ross, who I love, of 710 ESPN Seattle, the Jake and Stacey show, she asked this question like, hey, look, you can add all these players, but are you going to be able to buy your way out of some of the bad habits that you've had for years and years and years, the slow starts specifically? And Waldron's going to have to be the guy to change that. What an offseason to come into it, where Russell Wilson's theoretically looking to get out, all this stuff. I mean, man, he's got a lot of pressure on his plate. And, we'll see
come
what
in
he
here
can do.
and, you just need to get us to a Super Bowl in like a year or two, or quarterback's probably not going to want to come back here. And, we need to fix everything that's been, not right for the last 8 years, even though we made the playoffs. So you have to be better than just making the playoffs, 9 out of 10 seasons. But other than that, no pressure. Just do your thing.
No pressure,
it's okay. So you guys, what you said, summing it up, was 49ers,
I think the 49ers
Seahawks,
have the most
Rams,
talent.
Cardinals? Is that what I heard?
49ers, I will put the Rams ahead of the Seahawks right now. Seahawks, I know. I don't want to, but I have to. I mean, the Rams own the Seahawks for whatever reason. I can't explain it. And honestly, this might be one of those things where it plays out and you got like 3-11-5 teams at the end of the year. I think that the NFC West, top to bottom, is now even more balanced than it already was. And that means that you're going to end up not being able to sit high and mighty like the stupid Packers and the People's Republic of Green Bay get to do every single year, playing in that god-awful division.
How come there's always those divisions where the competition is so horrible? Like the Patriots were good, right? But man, who were they going against every year? There was nothing to stop them. They had almost 20 years of nothing, no resistance.
As a defender and a closet fan of the Patriots, which I try to hide my best because generally most fans like us are the worst. They did well against everybody. But you're right. You have 6 games against them.
But you got to win your division. And it was a shoe-in. Exactly. They were going to get the day. I'm not going to take away credit. They did what they had to do. But it helps. You're right. It helps when you can chalk up, we're winning the division. That goal is done before the season even starts. So
Josh Allen's the first good quarterback in that division in 20 years, that other than like Chad Pennington. That's how bad things were outside of there. So, they had a lot of help in that division. That's for sure.
All right, so I want to pivot off the Seahawks. I think we covered most of everything that I wanted to talk about. So I just want to go back to you for a second here. So like I said earlier, a lot of people who are watching this, and just so everybody knows, my guest today is Paul Gallant. He is the host of 710 ESPN Seattle, the local radio station. He's on the air weekdays 7 to 10 on the Danny and Gallant show.
7 to 10, and then me by myself.
10 to 11, him by himself. So you're busy every morning on the weekdays. So check him out. You don't even have to be in Seattle. You can get on your smart speaker these days. So check out he's got his Twitter, all his Instagram, and also on Facebook. Check it out. The link is also in the description. So I have a lot of guys who do YouTube stuff about the Seahawks, are wannabes or planning to be sports broadcasters. So what advice would you give to somebody who's in their early teens or in their 20s or trying to get through this in college? What would be the key advice that you'd give somebody who is interested in this business that you learned from your career?
It is really hard to break through in this industry, I will admit. And I mean, I've had help, the advantage of, first off, just having parents fortunate enough to help me through school, and that helped me go to the best broadcasting school in the country in Syracuse University. So that helped me out. But even then, I mean, that gave me somewhat of a leg up. What I would encourage anyone, no matter how old you are, with the internet today, you should be as multiversed as you possibly can be. For me growing up, writing was a little more important than it is these days. It feels like people aren't maybe necessarily as willing to read things, but there are going to be these apps that come out, like, and I'm going to sound like an old person right now, the TikTok and others that I struggle to understand. And you want to be as technology savant as you possibly can be. I mean, look what Norb's doing right now here on YouTube. This is an avenue that you have as well. And I'm an old guy, so if an old guy like me can do it, you're youngsters out there, you whippersnappers and your technology and your smartphone. Yeah, seriously, it's the most daunting thing is, I think, putting yourself out there and not 100% being confident in yourself. But here's the thing: and I am someone who lives in his own head. I might sound like an egomaniac and all these things, and to an extent I am, but for the most part, I am someone who is constantly self-criticizing and evaluating and all these things. The biggest mistake you can do is thinking that you need everything to look perfect before you put it out for the world to dissect. If you are someone that wants to do this, start doing it right now, because every single minute, hour, day, week, month, year that you put into this, you're going to be getting better every single day. And it's tough. I mean, I know for a lot of people that this is a path that is something that you do on the side of perhaps an actual job where you don't get to talk about sports every single day. And that's really tricky. And it's the people that are going to be willing to just put in the reps and showing up on time that are going to have a leg up on people. So if you're young right now and this is something you want to do, it's a lot easier than it was for me as a kid. I have this tape cassette, and I got to play it on my show at some point, maybe once the summer begins. I have this tape cassette of me announcing a football game between two squads of 7 Beanie Babies. Yes, that's right. I made a fake football game with Beanie Babies, and I did play-by-play for it. And that was for me, that was one of the few things that I theoretically could do, doing my own broadcast on a tape cassette. Right now, every phone, every computer, they all have microphones. They all have the ability to, at the very least, get started. And you can try it out. I think you should watch yourself back or listen to yourself back. Honestly, evaluate yourself. Don't give up because you don't think you sound good, but you just have to start. It's weird. You know, and I can't speak to the most successful or easiest way to get to where you want to be. It's not going to be easy. I mean, when I first got hired in Houston, my first job out of college, I literally did whatever they told me, which included working every single holiday, and not just working every single holiday. I worked 20-hour Christmases where I was running the board and I was doing shows and I was doing updates. And I slept at the station and stuff like that. And that's just for radio. And a lot of these places are going to run you into the ground because they know that you like this job so much and that there's a million other people that want to do the same job as you. And you just can't give up. And you have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. So even though, and I know some listeners might have heard, when it comes to, like catching punts or surfing or driving stick shift, there are things that I've given up on. This thing I never gave up on. I always worked my butt off as best I can. And I'm not going to say I'm the most talented person out there. I just know that I was always there. And you start being always there by just actually putting in the effort to starting. And once you start, you take it from there. But if you want to do this, start. You never know what's going to happen.
It's great advice. You just got to do it, right? Just do it. The Nike just do it philosophy. Because if you don't do it, like I said, that's another day that someone else is doing it before you are. So that's great advice. And that was when I started doing my channel. I didn't even know what I was doing. I wasn't even planning to do it, but I just started recording things, reacting to the games, and all of a sudden I found out, wow, people find this interesting. And then just one thing led to another, and now here I am talking to you. So it's been a ride that you don't always know what the path is going to be, but at least you're doing something. Things just go ways that you don't expect it to, right? You end up in places you don't expect to.
I mean, I work in radio right now, and look, I love radio, and I hope I'm at 710 ESPN Seattle for a really long time, but this industry is changing so quickly. Who knows what it's going to be in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I mean, things rapidly change in all things that have to do with media. Access is changing. And what's interesting for a lot of people right now, the people that are these beat reporters and stuff that used to have all of this access, they don't have the same access that they used to have. And I would also say that there has been, I would say, and I have, you might not believe this, but I have realized that the approach with which you talk about things is also a big thing. I think when I first started in this industry, and I would specifically point to my time in Houston, I was vicious. I was vicious about the Texans. I went in and I was this kid who grew up in Massachusetts who was a Patriots fan. And I was like, the Texans suck. Like I went in, that was basically how I started. And people didn't like that, but also the team didn't like that. And I think if you try to cover things as fair as you possibly can and as objectively as you possibly can, that's also going to help because you want to make friends in this industry. And it's weird because, you can step on toes and there are some politics to the whole game, which bothered me. I wish it was just all about you say whatever you want and people respond to it however they want because that's their right and that's your right as an American. But it's a little bit different on that front. But you have the means. It's in front of you. And it might take a ridiculous path, but if you work hard enough, you meet people, and those people have ideas, and if you brainstorm with them, who knows where you'll end up finding yourself.
Yeah. Well, for one thing for sure is definitely the technology is not a hurdle because anybody now can put anything on the air. You can look and sound as good as Paul or myself because, if I could do it, you could do it. Yeah. It can be done. That wasn't possible even just 15 years ago. So, but that also means you're competing with that much more. So you're going to have to bring it. So it's
so don't try too hard because I need to feed my cat.
So IB Dave Jones, thank you. Join the NORBFAM All Pro. Thank you, brother. I appreciate the support. IB Dave Jones. Jason E throws the question down in the super chat. Who's the number one in the NFC? So I guess we can, before we go to calls here, what is that answer to that question? We talked about the NFC West. Who's number one in the NFC next year? Yeah, you mentioned Brady and the Buccaneers. They're the number one going into it.
Put you on the spot. Who do you got?
It's hard to shoot that down. As much as I think the Buccaneers had a lot of luck go their way at the end of the year. I mean, they escaped out of the Packers game. There was a lot of luck. And maybe you look at it as the Packers kind of stunk it up and could have taken better advantage of some of those turnovers and things. But they had some luck on their side, too.
3 interceptions in a row.
That's what I'm saying, right?
I think the Packers would be an interesting pick, too. I think defensively is where I have questions about the Packers because I just feel like you can beat them up on the ground still. And the Bucs have the pass rush. And assuming everyone comes back together, they I think have the leg up on everybody. I don't know who my big question is who's going to be the surprise team? I mean, people are going to talk up the Cowboys this offseason because the Cowboys are going to be healthy, and that just happens every single year. But, okay. we'll believe that when we see it. The NFC East and the NFC North, it really feels like they're both two-team divisions. The South, I really don't know what to make of after.
Well, especially now with what's going on with the changes in the Saints.
Yeah.
That they were kind of always that every year you pencil in it's going to be the Saints. But now, Freeze retiring, changes over there. It's hard to know if that's they're going to pass baton and pick up where they left off. That's kind of a big mystery. And at least one thing we know about the Saints is Russell Wilson will not be playing quarterback there. Thank goodness. So
yes,
and since everybody was during the time when everyone was speculating and Florio and all the national media were pretty much already saying that Russell Wilson was good as gone, and they were looking at season ticket holder letters as proof of that. Well, let me just say that in today's email from the season ticket agents that was sent out to us season ticket holders, top of it saying renew your season tickets, Russell Wilson's photo. Slapped right on top there. Now I don't know if they had that ready, after the meeting with John Schneider in Chicago. Maybe they said just keep that over here just in case. But as soon as that meeting's over, no, we're not taking it. Okay, put Russell on there. Put Russell on there quick as you can. So anyway, I think he's on the side of the stadium
too about that Chicago meeting. Like I think that was very much overstated what actually took place. Now I could be wrong on this, but for those who don't know about how pre-draft workouts go, generally it's a bunch of guys standing around on a field. This idea that there was some clandestine meeting or clandestine, I'm bad at saying that word. See again, like
tomato, clandestine. Yeah, we know what you mean.
Clandestine,
secret.
Clandestine. Yeah, I don't know. But what I can't say is sometimes there's just guys standing next to each other and they shoot the what, and there might be some conversations like, hey, what do you like? What do you like here? The Bears right now are putting out a PR job, and it's Ryan Pace, the general manager, and it's Matt Nagy, the head coach, trying to save their job. I don't think that there wasn't a good deal that they offered, and I don't think that there was some secret meeting in Fargo. Guess what else is in Fargo? North Dakota State. This isn't like a scene out of the television show or the movie. Both of which are great, and I don't think that anyone's getting threatened to be put in a wood chip blender or something like, oh, you don't give us a good first round pick, we're gonna make you into Steve Buscemi. Like, no, I don't think that's happening. Sorry for the weird reference. That's a good movie.
I like that, right? Yeah, Fargo's great. So anyway, Russell Wilson picture on the ticket holder email. So take that, yes. Cowherd, Florio. Eat that whatever you want. Okay, so let's get some calls. Let's see if this actually works. And my computer crashed earlier right before the show. I almost freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, we're ready. I was like, I'm ready to go, Paul. All of a sudden, computer crash. Right. I'm like, oh, great. I can reset everything.
I hate it when that happens.
Let's see if I can actually get some calls here. I'm going to start with the guy who kind of started this spark. He was the guy who got this thing rolling. We talked about Seahawks Martin, and Seahawks Martin is here. Martin, can you hear me? Can we hear you? Martin, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there he is. Paul, can you hear him? Can you hear him?
What's up?
There he is.
All right, what's up, Mr. Gallant? And hey, Norb.
Hey, it's good to see you. Thanks for making this little meeting happen here, man. I have you to thank for that. So
no problem.
Nice work. Yeah.
You guys made it happen, so that's even better.
All right, yes. So what do you got? What's what question or topic do you want to bring up here on the show?
Well, lately we've been hearing a bunch of crazy stuff about Deshaun Watson, so I was wondering, what are your takes on it?
Oh, man, Martin, you are really putting me on the spot with that one. So you have to wait until more information comes out on this one. And I have my own theories that I'm going to keep to myself. You have to respect when accusations like that are put out. Several of them, you got to wonder what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, throws a giant wrench into just the entire process right now of what the Texans are looking at. And if they aren't going to see him on the football field, are they now going to have to get rid of him entirely? It's one worth monitoring. I have talked to as many people as I can because I am curious. I know I don't cover that team anymore. Again, thank God. But that would be really disappointing as someone who, has had a couple of conversations with him and honestly had a lot of respect for him, but you never know, I guess. But I also don't want to throw, accusations out on somebody. It is not looking good. I will say that. Yeah. The most recent story was pretty heinous if true.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Not the kind of news I'm sure that who knows how long this is,
and especially
hiding
after,
out there. But
with all the controversy with the Texans and the hot water, you're just kind of fanning the flames with this. So, that's a lot.
It's bad.
Be
thankful this is not your situation, and I'm just thankful I'm not there anymore because my goodness, we would really have our hands tied behind our back with what we can say about it. And I mean, right now, I'm even like, I don't know what the heck's going on here.
And can we just again appreciate what we have here in Seattle?
Yes.
Because Russell Wilson, as much as you want to knock him for some of the things he says or doesn't say, if the worst thing he says is, we could probably improve the line a little bit. If that's the worst thing he's going to do, or the worst thing he does is goes and it does photo shoots with Sierra somewhere, in the middle of Mexico, and you don't like that, just be grateful that you'll never hear any controversy about Russell Wilson ever, and he will play every single down of every game of every year that he is on your team. Just remember that when you're thinking about let's trade him and upgrade to somebody else. Just remember those things, all right? All right, so, Martin, I wanted to ask you something. How is it that you we're connected with Paul? Because I know you planted the seed to suggest Paul to connect with me, which is why this show is happening. How did you end up?
I actually just found him on Instagram, so I'm like, I just showed him a round table video of ours, and he's like, that's pretty cool.
Right on.
So I'm like, it'd be cool if you join, because you're 7'10", you are pretty famous around this area, so.
Well, that would be my next. That'll be my next thing, Paul, is to get you on the round table with the boys. Normally we do that on Wednesdays. So next time, if you're open to it, I'm putting you on the spot here. Would love to have you on there.
That's game, and I probably need to have you on an episode of my little YouTube series too.
I would love to, man. Let's do it. Let's definitely do it.
I don't even have to put any content out there this time. This time it's all you. You have to supply the content.
It might be a really short show then, but that would be pretty cool. IB Dave Jones, who just joined the NORBFAM, said, "Hey Norb, if the Hawks do not re-sign Dunbar, should they bring Desmond Trufant back to the Pacific Northwest?" Boy, there's something about the nostalgic nature of Seahawks fans here. We just love to bring names we know back. Marshawn Lynch. Let's bring Golden Tate back here. I mean, I don't know what he's got left in the tank.
There's the UW side of it too. With
the
him
UW
too,
side
right?
as well.
He jumped Tacoma. Like I get that side of it too. So, but at this point, okay, we're talking about a guy.
Can he still play? That's the question.
That's.
I don't know. He wasn't very good last year.
Yeah, I mean. I think you have to take a look back at anyone who was on the Detroit Lions last year and really wonder what they have left, because that's a team that's clearly going in a direction of pressing the reset button, to be nice, to put it kindly.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But hey, Martin, thanks for on Martin. Here. I'm going to get a few more calls in here as well. So let me get.
Thanks, Norb. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, Martin. Thank you, man. Thanks for making this happen. Appreciate it. You just did it. You did it. You just do it. You just reached out to Paul and just did it. Make it happen. Let's get Devin in here. Devin, regular viewer of the show. Devin, you're on with Norb and Paul. What's up, man?
Wow.
Hey.
I just find it crazy that, my dad and I listen to you a lot on the radio, and now that I get to finally talk to you, I think it's an honor. And we appreciate you for being here.
Thank you.
So there's, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about free agency and what was going on, because there's a lot of, there's like hidden gems that we can get in free agency. People are saying, we didn't get any of the big ticket names, but there's like centers out there, like the Patriot Center, who we can sign. There's a bunch of people, and there's also like a corner who just got cut. What's his name? Kyle Fuller.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a lot of people talking about that in the chat earlier too. Yep.
But with us, I heard we had about $1 million in like cap space, right? But I've been listening. What you guys said, we don't really know what's going on with cap space, right? So
right, it's tricky. You could always create more cap space is what basically I'm trying to tell you. You'll see a hard cap up there. Generally a team, when they are in a spot where it looks like they don't have enough, they're going to get rid of a guy that they probably were going to get rid of anyway. But it's very rare that you see a team part ways with a guy that they actually have like real tremendous feelings of regret when it's a situation like that. They have ways to create more cap space. and it involves extensions and stuff like that. That, maybe one of those extensions is Gabe Jackson. Maybe you add an extra year, you push some money down the road. Jamal Adams extension, when it happens, that would create space as well. There are a lot of things that the Seahawks can do, some of which you might see publicly, others of which you might not hear at all, to create a little bit of extra space. So don't be too scared about the fact that there's only like $1 million supposedly in cap space for the Seahawks right now.
Right. And when I heard that Gabe Jackson was coming over to us, I was like, oh man, that's crazy. But I forgot that he has 2 years left on his contract, and we owe him like around $9 million
each year, yeah.
Years. So if I think next year is going to be a really good year for us, especially when it comes to cap. If we can get multiple people to restructure, just like KC did, to bring some more offensive linemen in, because the KC they released two of their pretty good all-pro linemen, and they brought in better ones by restructuring. Patrick Mahomes is only his second year into his contract, and he already restructured his contract along with Travis Kelce and I think another impact player. So I think next year we can focus on bigger pictures, because I feel like, I don't know, Russell will now give in and oh, okay, it's working. So I just want him to restructure really bad, because I feel like
the Seahawks they can restructure and they don't even need Russell to do anything, right? Right, Paul? They have that power to just
can. So it's more one of those things where, it may have some feelings that are not great right now, and it's not just a matter of, hey, look, you can do this. What happens if you do it? Do you inflame the situation again with us? These are the weird sort of things that you have to keep in the back of your mind. Football is a business, but sometimes business is taken personally. So I would say for right now, the cap space side of things, again, they can find ways to do it. And it could be restructuring things with Russell Wilson. I say on the offensive line, if they brought Ethan Pocic back, that's probably going to be the offensive line going into next year. You might bring in some other guys, but I would say the kind of competitive bodies that you saw the Seahawks maybe bring in last offseason in free agency, where you're looking at them, you're like, who's this? David Andrews, I don't think is going to be one of them. And I will say, for as someone who grew up watching the Patriots and has seen offensive linemen leave and not do so well elsewhere, Nate Solder, Trent Brown, I know Logan Mankins, who was like one of the best offensive linemen.
Yeah, Logan Mankins.
He left. He went to the Bucs. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't the same guy that he was after he left New England. New England has had two things going for it for the last 2 decades as far as offensive linemen. First off, they had the greatest offensive line coach in NFL history in Dante Scarnecchia. I know you can make other cases. I think it was Howard Mudd or something like that. There's some other names out there that are probably just as good, depending on who you're hearing it from. But Dante Scarnecchia was there from like the mid-90s on until like the last couple of years. And also, when you got a guy like Tom Brady, who is your offensive lineman, who is your quarterback behind you, and you're an offensive lineman, man, Brady's going to make you look good, because Brady gets the ball out so quickly. So I would just say for any New England offensive lineman, and including to the Chiefs, who just gave $80 million to Joe Thuney, I would be a little bit cautious as far as looking at those guys and saying, oh, that's a move that the Seahawks need to make. And specifically with David Andrews, I don't think that's something they necessarily need to do. Fuller, on the other hand, yes, that's a name I'm looking at, and I'm wondering how much he is going to cost. All of those cornerbacks that are available. But the thing is, any move that's going to be advantageous for the Seahawks right now at a position like that, it's probably not going to happen today. It's probably not going to happen tomorrow. In fact, it might be something that happens in like June or July. And you got to remember that the offseason is not just something that takes place in March.
Yep. Hey, thanks for the call, Devin. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Keep listening to the show. I'm sure the 710 ESPN appreciates your listeners.
Yes, we do. Yes, thank you very much.
Sir.
That goes for all of you too. Tune in to 710 ESPN every morning. All right, quick address of the super chat. Jake Guerrero says, Jake and Stacy coming next, Norb. You're on fire, bro. Well, I'd love to have him. Love to have him.
I'll talk to him. Stacy is like one of my best friends. I think she's awesome, and Jake is too. Jake's a great sport. We mess with Jake sometimes on the morning show, and he takes it in great stride. And of course, he is in the circle with Russell Wilson. He's a really good dude. Both of them are. And if you haven't listened to their show, I encourage that you do. I think that they do a great job after me.
Yes, for sure. Drive Swizz, who's been busy on the chat today, he says we have $7,845,512 in cap exactly. So
not ideal.
There you go.
But you can always create more.
7.8. But yeah, there's ways to work the magic. All right, let's get a couple more here because I want to be respectful of your time, Paul. So let's go to Nick. Let's go to Nick LeBeau. Nick, got a question.
What's up, guys? Super entertaining show so far. I'm good. How are you guys?
Great.
Doing well.
Awesome. So my question for you, and you kind of already touched on it with Carlos Dunlap, is what do you think about the Seahawks defensive line, the guys we already have, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, LJ Collier, Jaron Reed, Poona Ford? How do you think those guys would do, say Carlos Dunlap doesn't return to Seattle?
Don't forget Rasheem Green. We still have him too, right?
And Rasheem Green, yes.
It was a little bit of a disappointment last year, but yeah, Rasheem Green too.
That is a great question. And, you know, there's probably a part of the Seahawks that are going to bet on themselves. They love Darrell Taylor. They love him. Now, I got in some arguments on Seahawks Reddit with some people that are like, oh, he's going to be back, Paul. You're stupid. You don't know anything what you're talking about. I just said, look, the guy had a limited offseason and he's dealing with this shin splint essentially for a year. So, you know, we probably weren't going to see him by the end of this past season. They really like Taylor. I don't know what that means, but they thought about taking Taylor in the first round last year. They waited because of the injury. And unfortunately, he was just banged up all season. So Taylor is somebody that might actually be special. I love Alton Robinson. He went to Syracuse. I liked watching him at Syracuse. When Syracuse was actually a contender, he was really good, and I was surprised that he fell as far as he did in the draft. I thought he might be like a third rounder or something like that. After that is where it gets a little tricky, you know, because defensive line, okay, you got Jaron Reed up the middle. Jaron Reed had a good season last year. Poona Ford, I like. LJ Collier, I think, is a solid piece. Is not what you want out of a first-round pick necessarily, but I think this past season he showed some promise. You don't have Carlos Dunlap, you're going to be in not an ideal spot to begin the season. Now, if you are perhaps at the back of the year, some of these guys actually might take the steps forward because defenses tend to make the most progress over the course of a season. Some of these guys, maybe it's Darrell Taylor, become that kind of difference maker, and they're going to have to bet on some of them. But even if he was only playing 58% of the snaps last year, you got to find a way to get Carlos Dunlap back. And I hope that they are able to do it. And I'm hoping too that time that he spent in football hell with the Cincinnati cheap Bengals, that maybe he looks at the Seahawks and he's willing to take a little bit less money. Because there will likely be some other teams that are vying for his services. I would say that Baltimore right now seems to be the only person that's on his radar, and they play a different defense, so that also might work out in the Seahawks' favor.
All right, great question. Great question, Nick.
That's a good one.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, let's go to Andrew. I think Andrew's from Dallas, Texas. Andrew, you're on with
Texas guy. What's
Norb
up, Andrew?
and Paul.
All right, hey guys, what's going on?
Doing well.
All right.
What you got?
Well, I just have a couple questions real quick. So about the draft coming up, we, as of right now, I believe we have like 3 picks, which is
second, fourth,
not
and sixth.
Which I know John Snyder's not happy about. One, do you think we're going to trade anybody for picks? Who would that be? And who is our number one guy that we should be able to pick? And it has to be, it can be more than one guy. But who do you think we're targeting in the draft for the second round pick that is currently our top draft pick?
And that last one's almost impossible to answer because we're talking about so late in the draft. So I wish I could give you a better one. I'll be honest, I'm not like draft guy. I let other people do the work and I'll be like, hey, this guy said this, but I didn't say it.
Okay.
You watch some of the YouTube highlights, but look, you're picking basically your first pick's going to be close to the third round. You can't really predict anyone. I'm sure they have some guys that they like on their board, but the draft sometimes plays out in weird ways. I mean, you got teams that just completely buck the norm, and the Seahawks are one of them where they'll take a guy well ahead of where he might be projected. Jordan Brooks is an example of that last year. Let's rewind. I'm sorry, my brain is terrible. What was the first question again?
Oh, do you think we'll trade anybody to get more picks? Because we don't have that many right now.
Okay, now this is another one. We've explored this one. The guy And I don't know how you feel about this, Nor, but I think the guy that the Seahawks could probably get the most in return for, if they were to make a trade, is Tyler Lockett. But they should not do that. And Lockett's going into the last year of his contract. That's the only reason I even bring it up. Lockett until DK Metcalf turned into DK Metcalf. Lockett was like my favorite Seattle Seahawk. I love smaller wide receiver.
I still think he's the best receiver. May not be the most exciting receiver. I still think he's the best receiver we have on the team. So I don't see how we could trade him.
Same. I think that too.
His hands definitely have a leg up on that of DK, and hopefully this coming season there won't be some injury in the middle of the year, because it feels like he's been banged up at the end of the last 2 seasons. Lockett's the one guy I look at as far as potentially getting you picks, but the way that I'm looking at it is you just traded a 5th round pick to get a starter. Yeah, you want some more draft picks probably. This is the fewest draft picks that John Schneider's ever had, and we saw last time they had this few draft picks, they did make a big trade. They moved on from Frank Clark. I would go the other way. I would trade some of these picks to get more vets. And I know that might not be the smartest thing to do because of the salary cap and stuff, but I mean, what are you going to get with that pick in the 2nd round? What are you going to get with your 4th round pick? What are you going to get with your 6th round pick that right now can help the Seahawks and a guy in Russell Wilson who clearly is, I think, starting to feel a bit of a mid-career crisis? What are they going to get? Yeah, there you go. I think that I would go the opposite direction. But you're probably right in that Schneider is looking at this and thinking, I need more picks.
It's especially in this season where the ability, no combine, such a strange football season. It's probably the worst time to have a lot of picks because you don't know what you're getting, right? It's just a weird season that way. So maybe it's not the worst thing that could happen to Seattle in this particular season.
Take a look at the positives. That's a good point, Norb. I think, how many things right now can you say, hey, this isn't the worst thing in the world? And this is probably even more than last year, going to be the weirdest draft in NFL history because of everything you just said. Like, some teams played, some teams didn't. I mean, at least you had a full college football season to look at last year.
And that was still hard, yeah. But this is such a mess.
Trey Lance played 1 game. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And you're going to try to evaluate him as far as those other quarterbacks in the draft. And, John Schneider went there. And I don't even think that's because they were looking at some quarterback to draft. That was probably because they literally needed to do that because that's the only way that they could get a look at Trey Lance.
Yeah. So trying to look at the bright side. Maybe it's actually a good thing. Like you said, maybe you trade in the speculative draft pick for something for sure, because there's something about knowing what you're getting instead of the taking come on, roll the dice. I hope he's going to be good. Oh. I liked your boy Michael's proposal. Trade the 6th round pick for Aaron Donald. If that can happen, do it. Yeah, I agree. No problem. So I'm sure they'll go for that.
The Rams with IRS threats because clearly they're not paying their taxes.
Yeah, that might be the way. Yeah, we'll get them legally. We'll legally get them out of there because they've been breaking the law.
Yeah.
All right, just a couple more questions because I definitely want to not abuse my time here with you. So we got a call here from Seahawks for Life. Seahawks for Life, man. You're on with Paul and Norb.
What's up? Seahawks for Life.
How you doing?
Doing well, man.
Good. What you got? What's on your mind?
I'm thinking about our schedule this year. It's going to be the NFC North, the AFC South, and then the NFC West, and then Washington and Green Bay. And now, the first part of the schedule, I looked at Jacksonville, and I was 100% confident with them. Now I'm 50-50 because they got Seattle Seahawks guys right now, so I'm like, are we gonna lose? So it's hard to decide.
Yeah. All right, sorry, man. The line's breaking up a little bit, but I think we got the gist of that. Looking ahead at the schedule, doesn't it seem like we have a tough schedule every year? First of all, we're in the NFC West. There's no cupcakes in there, so it's always going to be tough. Like you said, we kind of cannibalize each other. This team's got this team, but this team's got that team. This team's got this. It makes no sense, but for some reason, everybody just sort of has one of the other's numbers, but not all. And but then we got to deal with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in the North, and then staring ourselves at Seahawks East. In Jacksonville this year, right? It was going to be a little reunion of sorts. I don't know.
Here's another positive. We'll play more positive spin zone.
Okay, we need more positive spins. Let's do it.
Okay, so in Indianapolis, you're going to go up against Carson. Like this is good for your defense, I think. Here's the thing last year about the Seahawks defense. What good quarterbacks did they really play against in the second half of the year? Like banged up Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, I guess, like the quarterbacks they played down the stretch weren't particularly good. This year, the defense might be a little bit more tested. And you might cost you with some losses along the way. But I think now with what the Bucs just did this past year, I feel like you take a look at what you have on your roster and you probably want them to be as seasoned as they possibly can be going into the playoffs. So you're taking a look at, I would say Aaron Rodgers on your schedule, Trevor Lawrence, Carson Wentz, now Matt Stafford in the division. It's more difficult, but it actually might test your defense a little bit more. I like that side of it because defenses get better as the season goes along. And I mean, that's what the Seahawks defense did this past season. As far as the schedule, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be as easy as going up against the AFC and the NFC East. On down years, I think the AFC South is in the midst of a down period right now. As far as the who's the other division that he said? Shoot, it's the
the North and the AFC South.
Okay, North and the AFC South,
and then of course
the North outside of the Packers stinks. So I think the Vikings are about to take a pretty big step back, and then after that, you're looking at a Lions team that's clearly rebuilding.
Yeah, we get to see Goff with the Lions, right?
Yeah,
that'll be a little less scary than the version we see when he's in the Rams uniform. But
yes, exactly, because there's no Aaron Donald on the other side. Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw this, by the way, and I just saw this on Twitter. I guess one of the guys at the Bears might have tried to trade to the Seahawks for Russ, Akeem Hicks. Looks like they were thinking about cutting him. so what a great offer that was.
Yeah. Oh, this is great, man. I tell you.
He's requesting a trade now, Akeem Hicks. So he's being allowed to request a trade. So these guys like to spin things as if they put it together a really good offer. It's hard to predict the schedule at this point in the year too. I like to see the order first, and I guess they're going to release the order later than they ever have this coming year or two. Give us an idea of when they play a team because I'd rather play the Jaguars early on with Trevor Lawrence, yada yada yada.
Yeah, catch him when he's still rough and hasn't quite figured out the playbook and all that stuff. Yeah, later in the year he might actually be good. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's go to one last call here. We go to Rain over from the East Coast. Rain. Rain. Yeah, what you got, Rain?
What's going on, Rain? So I have a question about how we're doing in the free agency. So I know we've had a couple pickups and a couple releases, but do you think we're going to make some big moves that we need to make? Are you just what are your emotions right now? Because we haven't picked up any really good players, I guess you could say.
History tells you that they're not going to do that, right? I mean, Norb, you've been following this team a lot longer than I have, but this is something that they just don't do. They don't go after the big splash signings. And you know what? As someone who grew up watching the Patriots until this offseason, they didn't do it. And guess why the Patriots are doing it this year? They were 7-9 last year and stunk. Well, and it's a byproduct of the fact that when you're successful, you really can't afford to do it, right? Because you finish strong, you're going to be left with sort of the position where it's the teams like the 49ers rebuilding after having crappy seasons year after year, the Jaguars year after year. This is why you can get all these great picks and build up a team from the ground up because they were crappy for so long. When you've been in the playoffs every year, you're never in a position to get those great big names unless you spend a lot of money. And unfortunately, when you have a quarterback like Russell Wilson, other stars, you can't do it. So, we're used to this. We're kind of used to it.
So what do we need to do to be that 13 and, well, I guess they're adding another game. So 13-4 team or that 14-3 team?
I don't think you want to look at the regular season record, man. I think right now, get to the playoffs and figure out what happens from there and get better as the season concludes. I think that the Bucs laid out a strategy, well, not necessarily a strategy, but you know how Pete Carroll says all the time, it's not how did you win the game in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter? No, I mean, it's all about how you close the season out. And the Bucs, I mean, they were awesome down this stretch. They were so good. And I think that's something that can carry forward into next year for Tampa Bay. I think what you want to do is you want to find yourself in a position to close the season out strong, where you're not in like serious playoff threat, but right now, or you're not in serious jeopardy of potentially missing the playoffs. The Bucks kind of were there. I'm not saying start off the season 7-5 and then win your last 8 games. What I am saying is that it's easier to make the playoffs now more than ever. There's only one bye. I don't think necessarily having a better regular season record means that you're going to be a better or a worse team necessarily. You want to be able to have a team that improves as the season goes along. I know that sounds like such a cliche and generic answer. I almost probably sound like Pete Carroll or Don Schneider right now, but the big signings that they could have made this offseason, you saw what deals they got. The Joe Thuney deal is outrageous. And it's not to say that Joe Thuney's a bad player, but one player is not going to be the difference between the Seahawks losing the first round of the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl. There are schematic changes and there are young players that need to develop that are going to be able to help them potentially take that next step. And I know it's frustrating to sit on the sidelines and see all these like big moves, these big names go from one place to another. But I sense some fretting over the lack of action. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of what you saw last year. You're going to see some guys whose names you maybe recognize, but they're going to be bargain bin kind of players. And the hope has to be that Pete Carroll and now Shane Waldron on the offense can get the most out of them. And we'll see, and I wish I could give you a better answer than that right now, but I think that Gabe Jackson was a really positive step. They traded a 5th round pick for a starter at guard who is better than Mike Iupati, de facto. Is that going to help you against Aaron Donald? I don't know. But simplistically, you are better on the offensive line right now with essentially now some continuity too. Ethan Posic's back. Damian Lewis is back. Brandon Shell's back. Dwayne Brown's back. Hopefully he stays healthy all season long because he's the most important player on that line and he's getting up there in age. And now you got Gabe Jackson, and I don't know if you put Gabe at right guard or left guard, but I think you made a pretty big step forward in the last 24, 48 hours.
And that was a position of need. We needed to fill the left guard spot, period.
Yes,
and they did.
There.
Yeah, right. He had retired. So I think that's a good move. It may not have been the biggest name, but it was a name that definitely, is
he's a good player.
You didn't have to give too much to get it. So, yeah, I'm feeling a lot better as of yesterday, and we'll see how the next day or two continues on. So I said one last call, but I had to get one more in here. Chef,
go ahead.
Yeah, Chef Jack Attack, the youngest chef I know from the East Coast over in New York City.
New York.
At least the state of New York. Chef Jack Attack, you there? What's up, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Good, man.
Okay. So you're from ESPN?
710 ESPN Seattle, yes.
Well, that's really cool. So I'm going to ask you a question right now, okay?
Okay.
Are the Seahawks a Super Bowl team? No, they are not. Okay.
Hang on. Ask it one more time. You broke up, in and out.
Are the Seahawks, are they a Super Bowl contending team?
Oh man, you're gonna make me leave with this one. I mean, I feel like there are masses right now. I gotta give the right answer here. As long as they have Russell Wilson, they are in the mix. I don't think that the NFC is quite as competitive as the AFC, if that makes you feel any better. I think in Kansas City and in Buffalo at the top of the AFC, you got some really good teams. I think Baltimore is always going to be in the mix. I think New England's going to, at the very least, be more annoying next year. I think the AFC is a better conference right now. So you have that going for you. As long as you got Russell Wilson, you're in the mix. Right now, though, you are waiting in line, and you are hoping that somebody is going to notice you in the back of the line and say, "Oh, hey, want to jump up to the front with me?" And that's going to take some improvement this offseason, some hard work. And right now, are they a Super Bowl favorite? No. Are they a Super Bowl contender? As long as they have Russell Wilson, they always will be.
And you say that after earlier in the show saying that you expect the Seahawks to be third place in the NFC West.
Hey, look. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were not the NFC South champions.
They were not.
All you got to do is make it to the dance with this weird only one team gets a bye style. But
they had to. They did. They had to go the hard way for sure. So, you never know. You just never know. So, all right, and this is great. This is probably a sign of things because my camera just overheated on me, so my camera just turned off.
Wow.
So because I'm that hot, man. That's how hot we're going. But I was about to ready to wrap things up anyway. But Paul, why don't you just let people know what's going on for those again who are new to hearing from you, Paul. Paul is the local ESPN 710 ESPN radio host show every weekday from 7 to 10 on the Danny and Gallant show. And then, of course, in his own hour after that, 10 to 11, this is all Pacific time. But let people know kind of what your show's about and I guess what can they expect to hear from you when they tune in on their smart speaker or online or wherever they can pick up the show on their on the internet.
So 7 to 10 every single morning. It's me and my co-host, Danny O'Neill. Danny is an awesome guy. Danny's been covering the Seahawks, the Supersonics. He's been a mainstay in Seattle sports for a really long period of time. We have a fantastic producer as well, Maura Dooley. We have Brock Heward on the show a bunch. We have Michael Bumpus, a good friend of mine, a guy who is a Coug, who played a little bit with the Seattle Seahawks. So we talk a lot of football. We talk a lot of Seahawks. We also will be talking some Mariners with the season we think about to start really soon, assuming there's no random pandemic change all of a sudden. So every single morning, 7 to 10, we wake you up. If you're driving or if you are, just wandering around your house and you're looking for some hot takes on football, but on anything, I feel like we talk about the NFL and the Seahawks about as well as any radio show that's out there. So that's 7 to 10, 10 to 11. It's just me. So if you kind of want to hear a bit of a weird person that rambles and goes on tangents and talks about all sorts of things that just sort of come into my brain, it's something else. That's just me from 10 to 11. It's a lot of fun. We are very interactive on that show. So if you ever want to call in or text in, have at it. Tweet at me at Gallant Says. I try to work as many people, as many voices into that show because I think that's something that has been sort of lost.
In fact, you coin your show as the quote the most interactive sports talk show, right?
In Seattle, in Washington, and the world. That's what we say. We can't actually quantify that, but no one can prove us wrong. So we had at least that going for us.
I think we're pretty. I think we're pretty interactive here too, taking Discord calls.
You guys are way more interactive than me. I mean, you have this system right now, which I wish that we could have on the radio because it's a visual medium where you can see all these comments on the side, which is fantastic. So I do that. I try, and sometimes I'm tired, but I try to do once a week this little YouTube series called Getting to Know Seahawks Twitter. We're trying to work our way up and talk to the biggest celebrity online Seahawks fans. And we're going to have Norb on because Norb's had me on this. So that's something that we're definitely going to have in the near future. I like that, Wig. Nice job there. So that's something you can check out on my YouTube. It's a small YouTube channel. I'm trying to build it up. I am not as savant on this side of things as Norb is clearly. On Instagram, I have a personal account if you just want to see how I live my life, but my sports account that I'm trying to build up is at Seattle Sports Paul. It's spelled wrong, Pawl, because when people get mad at me, they generally call me Pow. That's at least how people did it in Houston. What else do I got? I do have a Facebook. I barely ever check it because Facebook is not exactly the most fun place to go on these days, but I am sometimes on it. So if you send me a message, I'll probably get to it after a week or so. And that's all the ways that you can find me. If you ever have a question, the best way probably to get after me is on Twitter at Gallant Says. And Norb, really, I really appreciate you bringing me on. It's really cool to talk to an entirely different audience. I feel like this is the future, and I hope to be on again, man. This was a pleasure. I'm honored that you have me on. Seahawks Martin and Lori Cross, thanks for setting this up and helping Norb get me aboard. And yeah, man, this is a blast. And everyone listening, thank you for contributing. This was a lot of fun. I could probably go another 30 minutes on this, I feel like, but I don't want your camera to die again. No.
Oh, I had to turn it off. It's good again. But Paul, thank you for making the time to be on here. I enjoyed this a lot, and I think the audience enjoyed it a lot as well. So yes, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Martin. And only in this day and age could this happen, right? You have this guy contacts you through Instagram, and then Lori through Facebook contacts you, and then I message you, and then here we are doing a show together. Again, there's nothing technically that can stop you from doing what you want. You just got to go out there and grab it. So
just
it's
do
awesome.
it, people.
Just do it, everybody.
Yes, the Nike slogan.
So one last thing, I wanted to do a quick shout out. I'm actually we're just launching today, and I'm hoping that you might be able to help with this. But do you remember a gentleman by the name of Kurt Warner? And I'm not talking about the analyst on the NFL Network. Kurt Warner,
running back for the Seattle Seahawks, 1984, right?
1983 took the Seahawks to their first playoff appearance in 1983. Almost made it to the Super Bowl, and the pesky Raiders shut them down in that season. But I've actually been working with them through my charity Fans for Good that I do with Mark Collins, who was instrumental in the Save Our Seahawks campaign back in the 90s. But we do a lot of charity helping people in need, and we ran across Kurt Warner, and we found out about his story about his two autistic sons. They have severe autism, and they're trying to get their sons, who are now in their 20s, to where they can be self-sufficient and living on their own. So they are in the process of making that transition, but there's a lot of money involved in that. So we are launching a fundraiser to try to raise some money for them. And so we just launched it today. Kurt Warner's and his wife Anna are very excited. And so we're trying to get a big push out there. So I'm hoping that we can reach it to my audience, maybe some of your audience out there. But
let me know what I have to do.
I will definitely send it out to you, and you can take a look and see about helping an old legend, a Ring of Honor, by the way, Seahawk, Kurt Warner, with his family and their battle against autism for his twin sons. So, but with that, definitely, I hope this is not the last time we do this, man, because this was a lot of fun. The invitation is always there. But again, my special thanks to my special guest, Paul Gallant of 710 ESPN, man. So thank you. I appreciate you being on here. And thank you to everybody else who was on the Super Chat, who was listening, watching, calling in. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And we will do this again sometime soon. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it, man.
Peace.